but we are partnering with two other churches in the area, Coastal City Church, which is right down the street. Eric Dingler, some of you guys have met him, and also Ignite Church in Franklin. And we're doing a series together called How to Neighbor. Jesus taught, they asked him, what is the greatest commandment? And he said, to love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind. And then he said, and the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. Now, how many people understand loving God is the easy part? Loving people is the difficult part, right? And so we're going to be looking at, over the next 4 weeks, each church is going to be looking at the same topics. We might preach them a little bit differently because our styles are different or whatever, but basically this kind of the same concepts, and we've been talking that over together to say, hey, how do we neighbor effectively? And we picked out 4 key areas that we want to be able to do that. And then we also said, hey, we want to have 2 big community events where the churches can come together and kind of bless the community. So the first one, we're running Point On, and Open Langley, if you wave your hand just for a minute, has put this together for us. We're going to be doing a Helping Hands Expo coming up this Saturday. If you want to help out with it, so I make sure I don't forget before the end of the message, inside your handout is this. You can sign up to help, and we'll tell you more about what that is specifically, but we're bringing in people to help empower the poor in our area, people that maybe have needs. They can come here and get some help. So if you know somebody in need, or if you know somebody wants to be able to find out organizations that can help, Open has lined up a whole bunch of organizations that can help people that are in need. And they're all going to be at Paul D. Camp Community College on this coming Saturday, okay? The other event is going to be at Eric Dingler's church. It's the following Saturday, May the 19th. And he is going to be doing he's going to bring in social services and foster care and help people be able to help the widows and orphans in our area, mostly the orphans, to say, hey, how do we help people effectively in our area? And they got some ways to do that with adoption and foster care. And if you feel God leading you to do that, and we'll talk more about that in this series, but there are 2 big events we're going to start with, and then we're going to see how this goes in the future. We may get to the end of it and say, we just don't like these people. No, I'm just playing. No, we'll get to the end of it and say, hey, how do churches neighbor? How can churches get along to fulfill God's mission and be part of the unity? So this is our first effort in being able to do that, so it's pretty awesome. The other thing with that is, this is all new. So being that we haven't done it before, your feedback is welcome. But I did a message a while back on how to give feedback. Go back and listen to that. No, I'm just playing. Give feedback in a positive way. You might be going, you guys don't know what you're doing. Remember, we've never done this before, so there's pieces that are going to work out great, there's pieces that aren't, and we want to capture all of them. But if you say it nicely, we're more apt to listen, okay? Anyway, just want to throw that out there, okay? So how to neighbor, all right? Today we're going to talk about something that can be a very sensitive area for a lot of people's lives. Today we're going to talk about how to empower the poor. And so what I was thinking of this, how many people have ever been broke? Raise your hand. Everybody? Okay, everybody feels pretty broke. I just want to see if you could relate to some of these. I looked up on Twitter. That's my go-to place to look up stuff. So I looked up the term, I'm so broke that what, okay? So I'm so broke, somebody wrote this, I don't know. I'm so broke my baloney has no first name. And if you're laughing, you're kind of old because that killed 2 birds with one stone. You've been broke and you're kind of old because they haven't said that commercial in like 10 years or more. Okay, anyway. All right, I'm so broke I can't afford hamburger helper, so I bought beef assistant. Has anybody, sorry, does anybody relate to that where it's like the generic names, who names these things? You know, like I like Fruit Loops, and my wife used to buy us fruit rings when we were going through a hard time, and it is not the same. I don't know what it is, but it's not the same. Sometimes just the name kills you. I'm so broke, my nervous breakdown is on layaway. That one wasn't quite as funny, but anyway, okay. And this is my favorite one. I'm so broke, I go to KFC to lick other people's fingers. That's kind of gross, isn't it? Very gross. Gross and funny all at the same time. If you just woke up to that, you're going, what is he talking about? Okay. So we know what it feels like to do that. And all joking aside, it can be one of the most difficult things in the world. What we want to look at today, here's what I want to say. What we want to look at today, it's going to take a while to grasp. There's two pieces today. If you're here today and you go, hey, you know what? I'm broken and I need help. By the end of this, you're going to understand what that means. We want to be able to help you today, okay? The other thing is this. If you want to be able to help people, today you might need to lean in. Because there's a lot of people that don't realize that the way we help people is just as important as the help we give, oftentimes. And I'm learning this. And even though we've been through some of the same stuff, sometimes we don't realize where people are coming from. And so how we help And some of you guys, maybe you're frustrated. You're going, I've been trying to help people, and it just hasn't been working out. And today, God is going to give you the key to saying, here's how you can help people in an effective way. And if you really lean into this, I have a feeling it could change your life. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show a short video clip that's going to kind of set up the principle, and then we're going to spend some time unpacking it. And what I'd like you to do today is this. I'd like you to take notes. So if you didn't get a handout, get one, please, and write down, and you can keep this in a notebook, but there's going to be some principles that we're going to give, and you're going to want to write them down because at first, some of these principles, you might be like me, and you go, nah, that's not really right. But this thing is a little bit more complex than sometimes we make it, and we can actually hurt people instead of help them if we don't do it right, okay? So here's the video clip.
We have a problem. Over 1 billion people live on less than $1 a day. But to most of us, this number is just that, a number. But the poor are more than numbers. And poverty isn't just a lack of money, it's rooted in something deeper. It's about broken relationships with God, with others, with the rest of creation, and with our own self. Take an example. In Uganda, in the small town of Kamara, Tima, a widow, struggles to survive by selling beans in the marketplace. Her baby is sick from dirty water. She can't afford medicine, and her land has been taken from her. Tima feels trapped. Until one day, a foreign organization moves in to help her town. They drill a well, they build a school and a health clinic. It feels really good to be helping people. But 5 years pass. The well dries up, the planes leave. Things are even worse than before. Good intentions are not enough. Imagine instead, Tima meets a friend who invites her to a small church where she meets a new community, the body of Jesus Christ. Through holistic ministry and economic development, the church shows Tima that Jesus reconciles the broken relationships at the root of poverty, that she is created in the image of God with dignity, worth, and the ability to help herself and her family and her entire community. It's not glamorous, but it lasts. The Chalmers Center for Economic Development trains the local church to empower the poor on their own terms, because the ultimate solution to poverty comes not from the outside in, but from the inside out.
Okay, so I feel like that clip was really well done, but it took me a long time to grasp it. So we're gonna kind of talk through that a little bit today. Take some notes, come back to it again. And this may be one where you have a grid, you have a template to be able to come back to, that every time you help somebody, it would be good to pull this sheet out and say, hey, have I considered the things that are on this sheet, okay? So here's what I want to say first. What is poverty? What is poverty? What does it really mean? Now, in America, we kind of look at it this way. We look at it as a lack of resources or material goods or mostly a lack of a resource, which isn't untrue. There could be a lack of resource, and that does cause poverty, but that's not the whole picture of poverty. In fact, when people that are very impoverished, and especially in the third world country, because it's like we have a level of poverty here, but if anybody's ever been to the third world, they've seen a whole different level of poverty. Sometimes we almost shame people that feel impoverished in our country because another country doesn't have as much, and we start to realize, no, it's not a resource thing, it's more of a mindset thing. I know because I've been there myself, and I go, it's more of a mindset than it is a resource thing. Now, that doesn't mean that certain resources aren't needed, right? I mean, I can't eat the principle. I can't eat my mindset. I mean, I need physical food and physical water and all these kinds of things. But when you talk to people about poverty, here's what you find out. People that feel like they're poor, or people that feel like, this is what's going on in my life, they don't describe it typically when you ask them, hey, could you describe what it's like? Most of them didn't describe resources. You know what they describe? Here's the words that they used: fear, loss of dignity, inferiority, hopelessness, powerlessness, humiliation, isolation, shame, despair. And as they talk to people about that received help from different organizations, these words came to mind. It was like, man, I almost decided not to take the resource. Some of them decided not to because of the way in which the resources were given out. And I know for me, and I've been that way before until I experienced some of it in my own life, I used to say things like, well, you should just be grateful for what you get. And if you're saying that today, I want you to lean in just a little bit, okay? Because you may not realize that a person that goes through this, and it doesn't mean that everybody, that sometimes there is toughness and there is correctness and they're correcting thought processes and whatever. But a lot of people, we don't realize that the way they feel is like this. And the first thing you kind of have to start with is, before you go there, is maybe write down this question to ask yourself, if somebody helped me this way, would I like it? Would I like to be helped the way that you're about to help somebody? Very important. I never thought of it that way until me and my wife went through a very difficult time. We've talked a little bit about it before. The part that I usually leave off is because I don't like talking about it, because it was humiliating. It was hopeless. It was powerless. It felt like whatever. And it's like, hey, I could talk about, hey, Marie had these physical problems or health problems or PTSD, but I didn't want to talk about the financial part in our lives where, I remember one day a friend came in and they looked in our house and they looked in our refrigerator and they said, hey, man, you guys don't have a lot of food in there. It's like, I don't want you to see that, right? I mean, we didn't have enough to give people at the time. And a friend came along and they were kind of like, hey, have you ever considered being on WIC? And they left and I said, absolutely not, right? I mean, I told Marie, I was like, we're not those people. You know what I mean? That's how it felt. I've been a pastor. I help people. People don't help me. I help other people. And I remember when we actually, you lower your pride after a while going, yeah, I'm kind of sick of macaroni and cheese or whatever it was. And so I was like, hey, you kind of lower your pride a little bit and you go, hey, maybe we need to do that because we kind of expended a lot of our resources. We made a lot of mistakes as well with our finances, but I don't know if you know it, but as you get in debt, there comes a time where you stop using it not because you choose to, but because the credit card company says, that's it, that's all, that's it, there's no more. And so we kind of humbled ourselves and we're like, yeah, that would be nice to get back in it. But I just remember going in the grocery store and you pull those things out. I want you to think about it for a minute. You pull those things out and you just feel like, and then the person in line goes, yeah, I don't think that's on the list. You just feel like going under the cart, I just want to give you how it feels a little bit, not because I've been the most impoverished person, only because I don't like to talk about other people's feelings. I think it only relates to me. And I used to be one of those people that thought, hey, why are you getting that stuff? You don't need to get that and this. And it's like, as a man, especially as a man, what it feels like when this happens. And I remember the other thing was this. We were going to a church, and they were getting ready to hire me, and they didn't get to because our life kind of fell apart. And then that year, they knew we were struggling. So they brought over, at Thanksgiving, they brought over a Thanksgiving basket. And I didn't eat any of it. Because I was like, that makes me sick to my stomach that you would think you need to help me. I know you might be judging me right now thinking, hey, why did you do that? Why did you think that? And later on, I understood some of the principles, and it took me a while to grasp. Just realize that as people are accepting help, be careful how you give the help. Because all of a sudden, they're thinking, hey, you're thinking of me like, oh, I see you think of me like a project, right? Is that who you think? Get out of here, right? I'd rather not eat it all than to eat that, right? I mean, and it's this feeling, and then you get to a state where people are going, well, can't you do better? Can't you do this? Can't you do that? And it feels like you're completely paralyzed from making decisions. That's exactly how it felt. And I just want to point that out to you today because truly poverty, when it's at its base unit, a lot of it has to do with a mindset. Now, I'm not saying there's not areas where we need resources. Resources are very important. But the part that comes easy for us as a church, especially a church in America, is the resource part. We can throw resources all day long. But if we don't get the mindset right, we're never going to help people change because poverty, when truly defined, has to do with brokenness. It really does. And we can all relate, and I believe that God wants us to be able to help each other, but he wants us to be able to help in a way, and if you look at the life of Christ, Christ helped in such a way. And today we're going to kind of look through it. And what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to think of the concept. We're going to share a scripture verse, some scripture from the Bible to see what did Jesus have to say about it. And then we're going to take and we're going to use a few principles, and then we're going to tell you one practical way we can do this together, okay? So Matthew chapter 25, if you want to turn with me, Matthew chapter 25, In verse 34, it says this. Before I go there, I just want to set it up for you a little bit. If a lot of people have asked me, when will you do a study on the end times? Well, today I'm getting ready to, okay? This is the important part about the end times. No, what we really mean is we want you to get into all the charts and all the stuff and all this stuff. I'm going to tell you today Jesus' version of the end times. He's going to tell you how the whole world will end and what will be important when it's all over, okay? He does this in one chapter of the Bible, Matthew chapter 25. If you didn't know, this is what he does. His apostles would kind of ask, hey, what will it be like at the end? What will happen at the end? What will we be judged on at the end? And in Matthew 25, Jesus says, when I come, when the Son of Man, he's talking of himself, when the Son of Man comes in his heavenly glory and he sits on his throne with all the angels with him, this is what it will be like. And he says it's as though, he said, the angels will divide them up into sheep and goats. It's a description. And he says, here's what he'll say. Then the king will say to those on his right, come, you who are blessed by my Father, and take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. That's apocalyptic, right? That's the end of time. You want to know what he's going to base it on? Here's what he's going to base it on. Verse 35. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to circle a few of these words, and we're going to come back to them. In fact, the reason why I want you to circle them, and I want to make sure you understand it, is because you're going to want to come back to this again and again and again. If Jesus is saying this is what you're going to be judged for, you might want to lean in a little, right? You might want to pay attention. These are worth circling, okay? So what does he say? When I was hungry, you gave. Circle the word gave. He gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. Okay. Verse 36. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I didn't highlight that, but circle looked after. I was in prison, and you came to visit me. Verse 37. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? What I like you to do is I like you to circle every time you see the word see. When did we see you hungry? Verse 38. When did we see you a stranger and invite you in? Or needing clothes and clothe you? Verse 39. When did we see you sick and in prison and go to visit you? And finally this, verse 40. And the king will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. You did for me. The verse goes on to say some things that I would have told Jesus, tone it down. But Jesus didn't ask me. Because he goes on to describe the opposite. He says, hey, come, you who are blessed, and share in your Father's kingdom. And then he goes, hey, the ones on your left, depart from me. Cast them out into utter darkness, where there's gnashing and weeping and gnashing of teeth. That's describing hell. And then he goes on to say, because when you saw me, you didn't help me. You didn't feed me. You didn't give me. You didn't invite me. And that's how he ends the passage, on a very negative note. Throw them out where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth. Tone it down a little, Jesus. You don't need to say the first part. That's positive. Let's stick positive. But he doesn't. And I think the reason why he does is because he's saying he's teaching us something about church that's super important. Because this is not to say at the end of time Jesus will judge us, and I want to make sure we're clear, on the works that we do. That's not what he's teaching, okay? In another place it says, we are saved by God's grace alone, okay? That not by works, lest any man should boast. Ephesians 2, 8, and 9, if you want to look it up, okay? The Bible clearly teaches it's by grace we're saved. So what is he talking about here? What he's saying is this: if you truly know me and you truly follow me, then you will see the need around you. But if you don't see them, you probably don't know me. There's no way you can have the love of God and not understand this part. So when we help somebody broken, it's not just what we do, it's how we do it. So important. I wrote down a couple things before we get to the list. I don't want to change the slide yet. I just want you to understand this part. I wrote these things down as observations that I want you to kind of lean into. A few observations. The first thing is this: compassion starts with seeing, if you want to write that down. Compassion starts with seeing. You know what we got to pray? God, open the eyes of my heart. Have you ever had life happen to you and then you saw life differently for other people? It's like, what's wrong with those people until you were those people? We did it with post-traumatic stress. We saw this guy go through post-traumatic stress and we thought, man, what's wrong with him? He's not doing this, he's not doing that. And then a month later, my wife started struggling with it. And we went, the exact same things. It was absolutely amazing. And it just gives you empathy. God, open the eyes of my heart. Let me see what you see. Let me feel what you feel. That's why it says so many times, when you saw me, you did this for me. When you saw this need, you helped me. When you did this, you helped me. The other part I want you to see is this. Look how many times the solutions were relational. Twice he says, you gave me something to eat. You gave me something to drink. But then he said, you came to visit me when I was in prison. I love that part about prison. Because, the people in prison did something wrong. And he's saying, you showed mercy to me even when I messed it all up. There's different types of prisons. Did you know that? That not all of them are steel bars and not all of them because somebody caught us. But did you know finances or debt can be a prison? Anybody? You've learned about MasterCard and American Distress and, right? Visa's not everywhere you want to be. Okay. Right? I mean, like we've learned, hey, MasterCard means what it says, right? And you can be in prison. The other part I want to point out is just an observation, is this. Not all of these needs, and this is going to help us a lot, are physical. He's not just talking about, and it is a piece of it. That's why he said, when you gave me something to eat, the book of James teaches, hey, if you're not willing to help somebody with their physical needs, don't bother sharing the gospel because they're having a very hard time listening to a God that loves them while they're starving to death. So please give them something to eat. And James says it very clear. He says, in fact, he goes on to say, what good is faith if it has no deeds? Because faith without works is dead. So don't bother sharing it if you're not willing to help. That's what he's saying. But he doesn't leave it there. He goes on to say, hey, look, the gospel is important. And I think even in the Lord's Prayer, we see, hey, give us this day our daily bread. Most of us understood. Jesus is saying, I am the bread of life. And what he's doing is this. I came to give life and to give it to the full. I came to give the abundant life that you need, that I am the solution to all of your problems. I am the bread of life. How many times does he say it? Or I am the thirsty. What does he say in the book of Revelation? We were talking about the end time. You know what he says? Anyone who needs to drink, come and drink from me and you will thirst no more. I am the living water of God. So please don't limit this to just physical. In fact, I would go further to say, honestly, the material things in life haven't been the hard ones for me. The hopelessness and the despair and the feeling that you feel of fear is probably the biggest piece of what we're talking about today. And if you're not careful, you'll limit the brokenness to just financial. That's a piece. It's not the whole thing. We're not here just to talk about finances today. So whatever prison you're in, God can help you right where you are, okay? Just want to make sure you got that today. That's just a couple observations. You can go back and read it for yourself, and I think you'll see more. He gives several parables right here in Matthew 25 to describe what it will be like at the end of time. It's so valuable. I know reading the book of Revelation there is a blessing. Please do it. But please read Matthew 25. It'll make so much more sense. Jesus clarifies what we are supposed to be doing, okay? So what I want to do today is this. I just want to give you three things that you can take with you as a grid. Every time, before you help somebody, I want you to ask yourself these questions. Am I doing these? Am I doing this? So important. Before I give them, though, I want you to ask yourself and write this question down if you didn't do it earlier. If I were the person in need, would I like how I'm helping somebody else? If I was the person in need, would I like that somebody tried to help me like this? That doesn't mean, it may be that you learn, hey, sometimes we have to correct people, and I do appreciate that because somebody did that for me. But if it's going, you know what, I would never receive help in a million years if somebody did this to me, you might need to rethink how you're helping people, okay? Because you might be hurting them without helping them. Does that make sense? Okay, so how to empower the poor. I love that word, empower, because it means all of a sudden it's a change of mind. Can I tell you how poor feels? It feels paralyzed. It feels like I don't have enough and I don't think I'm going to make it. And when you add your family into it, you get to this stage where you just can't think anymore. And God is going, hey, I came to give life and to the full and to give you freedom and to help you be able to think again, and people can help you. Okay, so here's how we help. How do we empower the poor? Number one, Serve others, not save others. Really important. Serve, not save. The saving part belongs to Jesus. Maybe somewhere you can write down, this might help somebody, especially those of us that get too involved. There is a God, you're not him. Okay? It's helpful. There is a Jesus, there is a Messiah, you're not Messiah. Okay? He didn't call you to save the world, he called Jesus to save the world. And I'm going to tell you why this is so problematic. Because if you think you're the Savior, you're going to let people depend on you. And then what's going to happen? One day you'll die and you won't be able to help them anymore. One day you're not going to be enough. Some of you guys, you've allowed people to cross that boundary and you're not serving them. You're trying to save them. And you've let them think you're Messiah because you love it, right? I mean, I understand. I love it too. When they're looking at you, I couldn't do it without you. I know. I couldn't do it without you. That's dangerous. You're allowing them to worship you a little bit. And I like it. I like it because you're right. Oh, we're so great. Let me tell you the problem is, anybody burned out on helping people? This might be your problem. You're saving them, not serving them. You don't realize that you could set a boundary because you're going, if I don't do it, no one else will, right? That's not what God teaches. When you see the need, when you have compassion in your heart, you can help people. But when you feel compelled because you go, oh, nobody else can do this, and you're feeling like you're sinking, I can tell you why, because you're trying to save people, not help them. God never called you past your own abilities, okay? God will provide in ways you can't believe. You're not the solution to their problem. And we got to start pointing people to Jesus to fix them. I'll tell you something, not everything can be fixed. That's why resources, giving resources, is you really have to understand what you're doing before you give them, or you could actually hurt people. Because here's the problem. If you think that all the problems are financial, then here's what I want you to do. Take a list of your richest friends and ask, do they have any problems? If it was just a resource problem, we could fix that overnight. If it was just a financial problem, there's enough wealth in our country to fix this problem. But see, the thing is, all the money in the world don't fix problems, do they? Do you know how I know? Because I've talked to some rich people, and they're the most miserable people that I've ever met. I've talked to some rich people that are very happy people. Well, then it doesn't have anything to do with finances, exactly. Brokenness doesn't have anything to do with your financial situation. Brokenness can be financial, but it can be other things too. And if you think that just this resource is going to fix it, I'll just write a check and it'll fix it. I'll just give this and it'll fix it. Only Jesus can do, right? So make sure you understand that. Serve others, not save them. Somebody's getting some freedom here today because you've been trying to save everybody and you are going under, right? And when I tell you there's a God and you're not him, it's taking a burden off of your shoulders because you've been trying to figure out how to fix everybody. And God didn't call you to fix, he called you to serve. You let him deal with the problems. Okay, so there's two types of help that I want to tell you about that you can just write on the side of this one right here, okay? The first type is this. It's called relief help, all right? And I'll give you a definition for it. Relief help is this. It's the immediate, temporary help during and after a crisis. Really important, okay? Immediate, temporary help during and after a crisis. Is it important that we do that? Yep. This is when people cannot do for themselves. A hurricane comes through, blows everything down. You don't have any water. You don't have any resources. You don't have any stuff. If you live in a hurricane area, please have some water in your house. I don't know. It's always a shocker that a hurricane comes in an area that has a hurricane. But anyway, so just for our church members, please have a hurricane box. I mean, it's going to happen. It's not if, it's when. So, but sometimes we can't help it, right? It blows down power lines. It does other things. People get hurt. People get injured. Red Cross comes in. The Red Cross is excellent. That's real relief help. They come in and they drive in the trucks. Churches are formed like that. We can help the community. It's when we go out with the chainsaws and we help people and we get them, and it's that temporary help to help people. I'll give you another example. When somebody's sick, sometimes that happens, right? Somebody's having a heart attack. They don't need the next kind of help we're talking about. They need help right now. They don't need a process or principles or understand anything. What they need is they need somebody to help them right then, okay? And that's called relief help. We're set up for that, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time there, but a lot of people only understand relief help, okay? The second type of help is called restoration help, all right? And restoration help means this: long-term relationship to rebuild wholeness. This is where we don't do as good. By the way, this takes longer. That's why it's not. It's not as, you don't get as much credit because when the person comes in that's there to help with the relief help, all of a sudden people feel good now. When you're offering restoration help, They don't always like you in the moment. I'll give you an example just physically. When you have surgery, that's called relief help. Most of us don't operate on ourselves, right? We go to a doctor and they go, hey, you're going to have, you've been eating all this cholesterol for so long and now we're going to have to clean out some of your arteries. You're not going to do that yourself. And then after the surgery, right, some of you guys have been through this, then they send this person in and they have a smiling face, but what they're about to do to you, it's like they were trained in hell itself, right? I mean, it's like, where did you come from, demon, right? I mean, I think I read about you in Abaddon, or whatever. You're like, where did you come from, right? And they're smiling the whole time, right? They're called physical therapists, okay? And they come in, right? And they start to go, hey, so good to see you today. Let's get up, right? And they make you do it. It's like, wait a minute, I'm paying you. Why don't you do this machine, right? That's what I'm thinking. Because they're going, I'm not going to do for you what you can do for yourself. It's very hard, right? Because you're going, it hurts. I go, I know. But that's the only way to walk. I know some people that have passed on physical therapy, they never walked again. So the physical therapist is not mean, okay? They're helping the person. Sometimes it's to break the enablement. Sometimes it's to break the addiction process. Sometimes it's to feel some of the consequences. But they're there to give enough and help to help that person along. Now, you have to have a good relationship with the person to do that or they're not going to listen to you. So don't think this is about being judgmental or you need to do blah, blah, blah. No. It's restoration help. We got to build a relationship. So important. So the first thing is this. We have to serve people, not save people, okay? And as you help people, I want you to think about this, okay? Evaluate. Is this a relief help or is this restoration help? I'm going to tell you what, that's changed our lives. Because you could be surprised that common sense is not common practice. And so many times we're offering relief help when what we need is restoration help. They can do it. They don't need help with that part. They need help with this. And we're giving them resources and they're going, I don't need that. And I'm telling you, churches are famous for it. But anyway, I know because I've done it myself as well. Okay, so number one, serve others, not save them. Number two, relate with people, not rescue people. We are not the rescuer. Jesus is. Does that make sense? We need to relate to people. Realize that we have to build a relationship, and especially when it comes to restoration help. Now, if you offer restoration help when there's relief help, most people don't make that mistake, right? Because why? Because you're going, the person's dying of a heart attack, and you're going, hey, we probably need to get out there and run some. Okay, no, you're not going to do that, right? It's the other part that's sometimes very difficult because we see them in pain and we go, hey, I'm just going to do this and I don't have enough time. The relationships take time. That's why I say to rescue them, very easy. To take their side. Sometimes we're looking at a person and even emotionally they're broken and we take their side. We go, oh, it's so bad they did that. Let me rescue you. And we get in that drama triangle. You ever done that? And then you realize, I don't know who the perpetrator here is. Oftentimes it's the person we're trying to rescue and they're the perpetrator, But they make themselves a perpetual victim. And so we have to stop that and go, hey, we're not here to fix it. We're here to relate to it, right? We're here to help. And there is a person that can help, and it's Jesus Christ. And we go, hey, we got to help them get to him, okay? Now, you can write down this quote because it's helping me too. Those that are struggling are not projects you help. They are people you love. Those that are struggling are not projects you help. They are people you love. If you think of people as projects, you need to stop helping and get your mind straight first because you're probably doing more harm than good. If you ever think those people, you need to knock it off because you're not helping. It's one of the reasons why I walked out of church and said, I don't think I ever want to go back because, I get here, I got a real crisis. I need to tell somebody about it. And they start processing me. And I walked right back out the door and said, no thanks, right? I know what my issues are. You haven't listened to the first thing. You see, the problem is we're not listening to some of the people that are in need. Because here's what we've equated. We've equated that we have it and they don't. That means that they're stupid and we're smart. And we have messed this up all over the world. I mean, it happens all over the world. We have to listen to the people we're trying to help. Now, as a salesman, one of the things they teach you how to do? They teach you how to listen for some of the needs before you apply a product. If you don't think that's true, then here's what I want you to do. Go out today and go sign up to go to one of those timeshare speeches, and you'll see what I'm talking about, right? It's like, I'm sorry, you're not listening to me, right? I mean, like, I just told you, right? And then they just, whoa, and they're still talking, right? I'm hanging up the phone. I've been off the phone. I pick it back up. They're still talking. And I'm like, you're not listening. Because here's the thing, until you do, you really don't understand. And we're going to start meeting needs, very well-intentioned sometimes, but we just don't realize, like for instance, I'll give you an example. In the third world, there's a lot of struggles. And so I've been part of some of these things where we send shoes over. And sometimes we've done this the right way, where we've talked to community leaders, we've talked to some of the orphanages, we've talked to other places, and we've sent shoes over in a really great way when you partner with large organizations that know what they're doing. Let me tell you what doesn't work. Short-term mission trips where we go over and we think, because we went, oh, I think they need shoes. We're going to collect a whole bunch of them. In fact, we're going to buy them Nike Airs and all these kinds of things, right? That's the shoes that LeBron James wears. And we're going to bless them with all these shoes. And then we went over there and we dropped off all these shoes. And later on we found out, you know what we found out? The person that was making shoes was put out of business for a year. Is that what you meant to do? Did you mean to destroy their economy? This person no longer can work, so now he's also dependent on us. Oh, and we're not coming back. We only went for 2 weeks. We're done. And we did more harm than good. That's why I'm saying you have to really think through some of the long-term ramifications of helping people, or very quickly you can go, you don't know them. So if you don't relate to them, stop trying to help them. You don't even know what you're doing, right? I mean, or find organizations that do and partner with them, because otherwise you're going to get there. And let me tell you something, it's not just overseas. We've done it here. We go into a poor community and we decide, hey, we're going to help this apartment complex. In fact, we could put in a playground for them, but we didn't ask them. They don't have any kids in that apartment complex. You know what I'm saying? So what are we going to do with all this money, right? And we've spent a whole bunch of money and people were super happy to do this thing. And we left feeling like, wow, look how great we are. And we realize, wow, that's not good, right? Or we're going to pay for power bills, or we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And then we learn later, well, I'm sorry, we really need a rehab. We don't need, they don't need physical resources. They need actually, they need help with their drug problem, right? So you give money to a drug problem, do you know what that does? That doesn't help, by the way. In fact, the people that were on drugs have come back to me since then and said, you know, I was on cocaine, right? What were y'all thinking? Right? I mean, what were you thinking paying all these bills? I mean, like, even I knew that was stupid, but the church does it. Why? Because we have a policy and it's easier. I can tell you why we do it, because here's the thing. It is easier to give a resource than to relate to a person. And when you want to sit down and talk to somebody and really find out, why do you have a need? What do you need? And all of a sudden, what you do is when you come alongside somebody and relate to them instead of rescue them, you give them dignity. Just because you don't have a lot of resources don't mean you're stupid. Just because, I mean, I'm telling you, man, if you look in the third world, I got this guy that goes over there, and if you saw the conditions some of these people lived in, and he had an entrepreneurial meeting in Africa, and it was absolutely, I mean, I was in tears because I was like, these people are living out of the worst conditions imaginable, yet they were the most entrepreneurial people you'll ever meet. And he came back and he said, I've learned more from these people than I've ever learned at any conference he's been to. And he gets paid millions of dollars to do these conferences. And I'm telling you, be careful that you don't discount the people that are the smartest, because you're going, hey, just because you have a lack, or maybe you made a mistake, or just because you're good at one area, and you're helping them learn how to do it. You know why we want to rescue? Look at me, right? I get more out of it if I rescue. If you say, I need you. But think about what that does before you get in there. When you start rescuing, all of a sudden you make people dependent on you. And then the next day, guess what? They're coming back to you, and they're coming back to you. And you know what? We don't have many success stories. I've been part of many of those, where we start giving resources, we start going there, and instead of thinking about how do we empower them to come out of a life of poverty, which is a mindset, instead, we just continue to provide resources. Next year, the resources are more. And the next year, the resources are more. But when you learn how to relate to people and build relationships with people and empower people, all of a sudden it starts to shrink and you're going, we want to give money to the poor, but there is no more, right? I mean, these people are helped and they're doing better. Now, not all of them can, right? Some of them need relief help for the rest of their lives, but it's a very small percentage of people, believe me. And we have to start doing it. I can tell you why we don't like doing it, because it takes time and it is difficult. And we got to do it, okay? So number 2, relate with people, not rescue people. And the last one is this, number 3. Reach out to people, not down to people. Reach out to people, not down to people. Don't think of yourself as superior. I mean, don't try to fake this one. Really, don't think of yourself as superior to other people. It's a very bad thought. There's no us and them, there's only us. And here's the part that will make sure we all understand it. We're all broken. Did you know? Did you know rich people are broken? I've met some. They're broken too. Can I give you the secret as a pastor? There are no everybody is well. People are well together. That's how God made it. And when we understand this, it's going to change our whole paradigm about how to empower the poor. It's really about reaching out to people, not down to them. When we reach down to them, we go, hey, we're going to come over here and we're going to bless you, and then we're going to leave and never see you again because, and please don't come here because, we're not set up for your type. If that's who you are, save your money. By the way, God doesn't need your money. Did you know that? God can rain down manna from heaven. If you really think you're that great, just hold on to it for a minute, okay? You really want to help. Make sure you got your motives right because God will bless more than you can ever imagine, but you will do more harm than good if you try to minister to people in that way, believe me. Take it from somebody that was there that went, I don't know who your God is, but I don't want to know him. Don't tell me any more about that. In fact, get out of here. You know what I mean? Anyway, just telling you. I'm telling you. We got to get this right. We're not down. It's up. And that is biblical. If you look at Acts chapter 2, it will tell you how this is set up. Acts chapter 2 would be a great passage to read. When you get to the end, you know what it tells you? It tells you the dynamics of what the church is supposed to be like. And what it says is basically this, that when Jesus ascended back into heaven, he took all the gifts that he had and he said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give them out to everybody. Everybody's going to get one. When you come to faith in Christ, the Holy Spirit is going to ignite the gift that I gave you. But the problem is this. This is why you have to be part of church or it doesn't work. You don't get them all. You only get a portion of them. Some will be good with finances. Some will be good at mercy. Some will be good at this, and some will be good at that. And we all try to do our best to be good at all of them, but we're not. And so as one is weak, the other person comes to help. And you know what they did? This is a great example when people say, hey, how do we do this benevolent thing? How do we help people effectively? They took their rich, as people started to come that were rich, they said, we don't care about our riches anymore. And it started off as a good thing, and then it turned into a bad thing. That's what people do, okay? I know because I are one. Okay. And so what they did was they brought their wealth and they sold their possessions, and some of them would give all their possessions to the apostles. Not because apostles were so great, so that when they helped the poor, it didn't come from me, it came from the church. This is big. So I didn't get credit for what I gave. Well, how much did you give? It doesn't matter. Because it's all here. And who did you get blessed by? The church, the organization. You know why that's important? Because I have seen too much where people go, I want to be the rescuer, so they want to put their face on it, and now the person feels indebted to them. So when you come to me and somebody says, well, John, thank you so much for the money you gave us. I go, it's not my money. I didn't give it. Somebody else did. Who gave it? I don't know. I never look, right? Why would I look? Because it's none of my business what they give. It's that God provided this resource to help here, and we want to do that in a way where we go, hey, we've related to that person, we've talked to that person, and we're able to bless that person or that organization or whatever else that we do. And I'm telling you, it is the model to follow. And if you start thinking of it that way, you'll start reaching out to people, not down to them, and it will change everything. It's changed my life to go, man, could we listen? Could we really help? Could we really empower somebody? And we've seen some results and some things we haven't gotten right, and that's why we have to wrestle through this thing together, because we all have the gifts that we need, and God needs you too. And the first time that person that you've helped realizes, I might not be able to help with money, but I could help with other things. I have some ideas too. God's blessed me. And all of a sudden, you've given that person dignity. All of a sudden, you've given that person hope. And you'd be surprised what God can do with a life like that. It's absolutely amazing. Please, make sure you consider this. The other thing I'd say is this, is maybe before offering help to somebody, let somebody help you. Are you broken? Now, I know a lot of people, and especially in our area, there's a lot of pride, and the one thing that I see the most of is this. Oh, no, I give help, but I don't take any. And to that, I'd like you to read in the book of John, I think it's John chapter 13, where Jesus talks to his apostles, and he brings them in. And he gets to Peter, and he says, you can't wash my feet, Lord. Nobody helps me. I help people. They don't help me. And he says, if that's who you are, you have no part with me. You're not my disciple anymore. Let people help you. If you're not letting people help you, if you're not letting people speak into your life, if you're just the guru and you're helping everybody but nobody ever gets to help you, you're not part. First off, you're not ready to help anybody because you don't know what it feels like to be helped. Let people help you. I'm telling you. You know why I'm saying that? Because we're all broken. If you don't think you're broken, I can step down and Messiah, come on up, right? We don't mean it that way, do we? I didn't mean it that way. I just want to help people, but I might not need finances, but you need to allow people to speak into your life. That's why small group is so essential, because you're opening up your life and they're opening up their life, and all of a sudden the gifts are starting to be used together, and it makes us into the body of Christ. I told you before, right? Loving God is the easy part. Loving people, it's very difficult. And we mess up and we don't do it all right and we do all these things. And so that's the way it is. And so I'd like you to take this list and really think about, hey, before I help somebody, I need to serve people and not save them. I need to relate to people and not rescue them. I need to reach out to people and not reach down to them. And then you know what you need to do? You need to allow some people to do that for you too, okay? Serving and being served, loving and being loved, celebrating and being celebrated. You're not outside of this, you're part of this. And the day we understand that, we'll become the church that God wants. You read Acts chapter 2, and you'll see exactly what that dynamic does. It's absolutely amazing, okay? So there's a grid for you to use in SOP. So I want to give you one practical thing to do, and then I'll get you out of here, okay? So the practical thing is this coming Saturday, May the 12th, right out at Blvd Camp Community College. Open. Somebody asked me, what time do we want everybody there that's serving? 8 a.m. That's pretty early. I'm just playing. But you got to be committed, okay? If you haven't signed up to help and you want to, here is a card for you to sign up to help, okay? So just so you know what we're helping with, we're setting up tables, we're setting up booths, and we're going to have several large organizations there that help people. So if you know somebody, there's flyers out there. You can put them where people are. Or if you know somebody that you go, this person really needs help. Here's what I know. Most people that you say, hey, there's a place that's going to help you, they're not going to go. But you know what they might do? If you said, hey, they got bounce houses for the kids, which we will. They got food that we can go eat and kind of relate. And then why don't we walk through that together? And we won't put no pressure on you, but you bring your friend there and walk there with them. And I'm telling you, it will do wonders for you. Because you know what I'll tell you? I would have never in a million years showed up for a Helping Hands Expo unless my friend went with me. So maybe it's one of those things where you go, you know what, I can't serve right here, but I'm going to bring somebody that really needs some help. And we're going to love on them and help them and pray for them. And so if you want to help, here's some needs right here to help. 8 a.m. we're going to do it. We'll tear it down. And next Saturday is going to be a huge effort. The other thing is this. If you know, hey, we get calls from large churches all the time because Open has done a really good job at collecting a lot of resources. And so we get calls all the time for people going, how do you guys evaluate? How do you guys help with this process? This will be an incredible opportunity to network with Isle of Wight and Southampton's largest community organizations that there are. And some people don't even realize it. And I get calls from churches that are paying for stuff that the resources are already there. And we've said as a church, we're like, hey, you guys help so many people. Can we give you guys money? And you know what the good ones are saying? No, because we have grant money and we have so much money, we don't need any more money. We do not have a resource problem in our area. We have a distribution problem. Now, some people don't qualify because they got other issues that we have to deal through, okay? But the truth of the matter is, there is more resources in our area than most people even know, and they're all going to be out there on Saturday, and I'm telling you, it'll be incredible. So if you know a church that's struggling with that thought, and they go, I'm doing this all by myself, this will be a great opportunity to come out and partner with us. We'll be there, Ignite will be there, Coastal will be there, and we can say, hey, it's not just about New Branch brand. We don't just put our brand on it. It's about that. If you're there and somebody needs a church and you go, this is closer right here in Franklin, tell them about Ignite. Tell them about Coastal. This is about the church coming together, not a brand. This is about the brand of Jesus Christ. And I think it's going to be absolutely awesome, okay? So the other part is this. We need you to pray for it. Carol brought up a great point the other night. She said, I hear all this organization stuff, but when are we going to pray for this? Ooh, we probably need to do that, right? Because God is the one that's going to change everything. So the night before at 6:30 at Blvd Camp Community College parking lot, Carol is going to lead us in prayer out there to pray over this event, okay? And then she's going to have a prayer tent the next day. So if you're very spiritual and you would like to be able to do that, for people that come and say, hey, you know what? I might have some physical needs, but I really need somebody to pray with me. I really need to know who Jesus is. They're going to be there and do that. And she is taking volunteers for that too. So, and if you can't be there for whatever reason at 6:30 on Friday night, if you would take time and pray, maybe write that down and say, you know what? I can't physically make it, but I'm praying for you guys. And maybe text us or something like that. Text the church number and just say, hey, I'm praying with you guys. Because there's power in prayer, brother, right? We're not here. We're not the saviors. Isn't that what we just said? We're not the ones to save them. We're there to serve them. We're not there to rescue them. We're there to relate to them. We're not there to minister down to them. We're there to reach out to them as another broken person to another broken person. And when we come together, we become the body of Jesus Christ, okay? That's how to neighbor. That's our first step for it, okay? So you turn these in on the way out today if you want to help. And please, please, please pray for us. Does that sound good? Let's stand for prayer.